magic if of like get like when the game just came out and you got here and there wasn't like any videos about the place yet or wikis and stuff, just the exploration. Like how that's like kind of a very I can see that's being a special experience. So I'm trying. I'm trying to play semi blindly, but I've seen some videos and there's a streamer I watch who's played a lot, so I recognize some things. Oh, we're live. Welcome to. Well, we weren't recording today. We're not recording, but we are recording, and we're talking. Well, I was talking about Elden Ring, but we'll talk about whatever. Yep, that's us.
Yeah, you guys missed the health segment, so I think we're done with that. Unless the
Yeah.
director would like to evangelize further. So, yeah, yeah. My buddy and I just finished Baldur's Gate 3. He had never finished it all the way through because he's one of those that like would get to Act 3 and then he and or the person he was playing with would jettison. So
Yeah, apparently
you
that's
know,
really common. Happened to my
yeah,
brother too, my
yeah.
roommate as well.
I just feel like you got to kind of get into the exploration mode, and then there are some things that happen. People get cheesed off about kind of getting your hand twisted to go have to talk to one of the villains early on and stuff like that. So I get that, but this was like my fourth completion or fifth completion. So I was like, yeah, dude, let's just do it. Like, yeah, I get it's a slog, but it's a line. You just like you do a quest and then you do the next quest, and if you come out of one quest and you're like, oh shit, I'm over next to so and so, you go do that too. Like your first time it's kind of hard to do that, but once you've done it, it's like it's a checklist. Just go down the checklist. So but
I think for my brother, it was more. I mean, I guess it was a bit of a disconnect from the parts of the story that he cared about, and there was also just a lot in Act 3, like like in the town
yeah,
itself, Baldur's Gate, and he just felt like I don't know, I'm overwhelmed. And then he made a new character.
sure. Yeah, the overwhelmed is a pretty common one because it's like it's Act 3. There's no more. They've got to tie everything up, and when that you say that, it's like they've got to tie everything up. So loose ends from Act 1 and Act 2 will reappear, and you've got to go like, oh hey, remember that artist that you presumably saved in Act 1? Yeah, he's here now because that's how the game works, because we're now in the city that the game is named after. And it's like, oh hey, remember that villain that you thought that you dispatched in Act 1? She's here too. So yeah, I kind of dragged my buddy into that because he got to the point where he's like, look, dude, if we're going to finish this, I don't want to do all the side quests. And I'm like, okay, that means we're going to skip the artist. We're going to skip a couple other things. But I was like, we're going to go talk to this mom who's looking for her lost child. And I know that's not what you want to be doing right now, but I think it's going to pay off for you, because that's one of the like villains that you're pretty sure she died and you got to go deal with her again. But yeah. Spoilers for a 2-year-old game, just saying, so but
A 2-year game that wasn't early access and played to
yeah, for like
a lot
several other years.
Several,
Yeah. And then so the bastard, he was playing a necromancer and I was playing a paladin, and he decided to go mind flayer and usurp the brain at the end. So the bastard, with his sudden but inevitable betrayal, like I saved it because I was like, yeah, it's your first time. Let's go through a couple of the endings. And then at the end, he's like, man, this is terrible. I feel bad for doing this. And I'm like, okay, so do you want to let it ride or do you want to go back and do the good guy one? He's like, nah, fuck that. We're letting that ride. And I'm like, okay. So we immediately started another playthrough where we're going to be less evil. So, or at least he is. So, because I was straight up the paladin the whole time.
So are you gonna be more evil, or are you just gonna be the paladin?
No, we're gonna do a druid themed run or a nature themed run. He doesn't want to be like hamstrung into druid, but I'm looking at doing another ranger gloomstalker, which is what my first playthrough was really, but I'm smarter since then, so I can lean into the meta a little bit better. And he downloaded a mod for this shaman class, and we might start over because he's like, the shaman class is fun, but it's only healing or blasting. There's no utility, there's no skills, there's nothing. So it's like outside of combat, this character is going to be useless,
Yeah. My brother's second playthrough, he also downloaded a mod and is playing some new class.
Sure.
which I don't. I think it's a like I actually like the idea of the honor mode in the game, but I feel like that you can
Mhm.
play mods in the honor mode and have these really broken classes. It's just like kind of takes away from the idea of what the honor mode is supposed to be.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, like a couple of them that catch my eye are like the ASMR mods and stuff like that, but it's like they're
Yeah, he's playing an
so
SMR, I believe.
broken.
That's the half angels,
Yeah.
right? Or
Yeah.
descendant of angels. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like, yeah, those usually are sufficiently broken that it's like, again, what's the point, right? Like, you
Mm.
know, I don't understand the people that just want to hit the I win button. I was like, that's not hard, you know. You want to struggle a little bit, you want to play with your build, you want to do something else, but like at the same time our last playthrough wasn't exactly a struggle session. Like that, this was, like I said, I was playing parallel at the same time. In my other playthrough, I think I beat just before this one, so it's like technically my fifth completion. But there were some bosses that I was like, do you have any idea how much I struggled with this the first couple of times we did this? And it's like done in 2 or 3 rounds, because my paladin will nova for 150 damage, which is not even that great, but when the boss only has like 600 at tops, that's a lot. And then, you know, his monk doesn't even nova and he's doing, you know, 150 to 200 points around easy. So it's just
Yeah.
like, yep, nothing stands up to that, not for long. So anyway, it's
I
fun.
mean,
And you know, they got it sufficient where you can like role play, right? So loads of people are just like, yeah, I'm just, my build sucks, but I'm role playing, and that's kind of the point, you know. But
yeah. Is it even in Elden Ring? I'm not that far out. Alex has played through the game or played with her boyfriend through the husband through the game. I don't remember how it was if you played it or if he played it and you were just there next to him.
He played it. I spectate.
Yeah.
Andreas, you
Uh,
got any silver nearby? Just totally unrelated question, you know.
Silver? Why?
Yeah, no reason at all. So
No, why?
I'm just, how long have we been doing the podcast, Andreas?
Oh, you mean because I called her boyfriend not husband? Or
I don't know. I want to know how long you've been doing the podcast, Andreas.
how long I've been doing the podcast? 11 years?
Mm-mm.
Changeling for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even a very good one. Like,
Yeah, no, this is
yeah.
very poor imitation of a real person.
Yeah. Give us
Leave me
Andreas
alone.
back, you son of a bitch.
I am here. I'm from Norway.
Maybe
There's
this is
no
better.
way I'm going to
The
believe this.
Changeling might be a better, like an improvement. EG might like it more.
We'll see, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so much we could do about it right now. He's so far away. He's clearly in Act 3. We're gonna have to like go hat up and get all our levels and everything. So
True. But I'm in the capital city, which I thought was more endgame than it actually probably is, from what I've been able to gather. Question mark. Like it seems
mean,
like
it's
there's
open
still a
world.
lot more of the map that's unexplored.
Oh yeah. And even shit that you can't see on the map.
Yeah, like I went to a teleporter on top of the town here, the capital city, that took me out into the middle of nowhere, where there was just like this big tower surrounded by water that I could not enter, so I had to teleport back. I was like, oh, I guess I wasn't supposed to go here yet. But so I was like, I didn't even realize there would be stuff here. That I just thought this would be ocean, but there was like a whole ass big tower.
That's cool.
See?
Yeah.
There's a,
My
speaking of mods, there's also, I saw this, which I'm not gonna be able to touch for a long while because I have to play the base game and then the DLC. But there's this whole ass mod that just completely recontextualizes like the game in a big way, adds bosses, more weapons, classes, and stuff. That's very like, people put a lot of work into it.
Mhm.
It's essentially Elden Ring, but very different. So you get like a whole new experience while still, if essentially, you know, it follows the same. It's just the same gameplay, kind of, right? So that's insane that people have made a mod that extensive.
Sure.
But that's still gonna be a pretty long while off. Because base game,
Right.
DLC, and then Night Rain's coming out. Are you guys playing that, Alex?
He's interested, but because of the weird multiplayer, we don't really know what that means and what does that look like, and we want to know
Yeah.
more information.
Yeah, I saw
You
a
can, from what
one-liner
I've seen,
from.
play it solo, but
Mhm.
it's not scaling down. So if you play alone, it's just harder than if you play 3 players.
Right, but like, what does it mean to have these 3 players? Because they don't do multiplayer like that very often. They have their weird, like, you get to visit people type of multiplayer, but not like play through the whole game together. So this is a different change, and like, could it be something like Vermintide, which you have a party of people, but you could play it like with bots or something? I don't know.
And as far as I know, it's either real players or you alone. And it's like roguelike, like you progress your character, right, and you keep that like you do in Souls games. But when you go into that area, the zone where things happen, it's different every time. It's not the same exact map like it is in the other games. Things get moved around, and then when you've cleared that zone enough, you get to like a big boss, and that big boss gives you some big reward that makes you progress your character further, and you can kind of keep doing that.
And what is the purpose of these classes that they have? Classes, characters or something. Like, I'm not. It's kind of a mix between them, but they seem to be set characters.
Yeah, they are like, from what I understand, the little I looked into it and seen people talk about, it's like they are specific play styles that people often do in these kind of games. One of the newer ones that I've seen is essentially it's the Sekiro class, so it has parry. Like you can perfect parry everything if you time it right. And then there are others that, like, this is the summoner class, and this is the classic big bonk guy, and then they have like an ultimate ability you can build up, something like that.
We'll see.
I think I'm gonna try it. Maybe US and EU can play together, and your husband and I can run around in Night Rain together. Do you want to join us, Justin? The podcast crew?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you guys don't mind a carry, so
Yeah, but I don't really know that much. I've just seen a little bit. This stream I watch has talked about it a lot. That's where I got most of the information.
yeah.
Because he's played like 3,000 hours of Elden Ring.
Nice. I saw one liner that was like they had done really good with the scaling for 1 player and 3 player, but not so much for duos. And it's like,
Yeah, they kind of
that'll be
forgot
fun.
duos. I saw that too today,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
They got asked about duos, and they were like, oh yeah, that's
Wait, there's a
something
number
people,
between 1 and 3?
yeah,
That's
that's
crazy.
something people might want to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll get that fixed, but that's gonna be later because we kind of forgot people would want to do that.
That's kind of silly to me, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, my experience with Elden Ring so far, other than, I know it exists and I've had friends that play it and whatever, is watching my brother play somewhat and die plenty, as is the game, right? And then get annoyed that I don't know more about the lore. So I went and found like a lore post, and they're like, okay, so this is what we assume because we have no fucking idea, because it's like that's how thin even the lore is. And that was supposed to be one of the selling points from one of my buddies. He's like, I think you'd really enjoy the world. Don't focus on the fact that you're going to get your ass kicked over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
I mean, that's kind of what I do.
It's
Is like
actually really
he goes
extensive.
killing things, and I go like, "What the fuck did that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, right,
What did that mean?"
right. Like, where are
As
these
I
guys from?
understand
And what is that? And what is this
That's what I've
place?
experienced. It's very extensive, but it's very hinted at, and you really gotta like read all the item descriptions and stuff to get all the lore. It's not just put on display in a way.
Right.
It's like very as if you just ran around and had to figure it out, kind of like if you were.
There's not much
really
exposition. Like,
Yeah.
the game
True.
treats you as you're just a dumb dude in the world, whatever. They're not just sitting down and here's the story from the beginning with all answers.
Right.
A lot of people, I feel like the thing I noticed, like this was the streamer was having this discussion where there's the opening cutscene for the game. The way the guy who's talking is like he's telling a story, and he's talking about us, but he's not talking to us. And a lot of people hear it as if he's talking to you, the player, but he's not. He's talking about the player. So that kind of recontextualizes some of the things he say, and he went into like a whole deep dive on it that I can't really remember. But I thought it was kind of interesting. Like if you listen to how he's talking, he is talking to someone. He's telling a story. He might be full of shit, by the way. We don't know, but he's not. It's not like to you, the player, the tarnished, as you're called. So I thought that was interesting.
The Tarnished is also not one individual person. The Tarnished is a population of people, of which you are one of them.
He also talked about how tarnished, like you say, they are a population of people. There's like specific people that we, the player, are actually not a tarnished. We're like a demigod. We're one of the demigods.
What?
Yeah.
Uh,
I can't explain the details to you because I don't remember it well enough. But if you look it up, that's like apparently a pretty common theory that you are actually not a tarnished. You are one of the demigods, like reborn. It's a thing.
Good rebuttal. The headshake, so.
It just doesn't make. I'm disengaging with this.
You got her on the run, Andreas, or what do we call you? Like Nega Andreas?
It's just the thing he was talking about, and it made
Fake
sense when he presented it anyway.
And how many steps of tinfoil assumptions did it take to do that?
Not much. From like when he presented, I can't fucking remember it properly. If you Google it, if you Google the player is a demigod, there are like whole Reddit threads, and I vaguely skimmed over one where I was like, oh, this kind of makes sense. After he talked about it, but I can't remember. This was like a week ago, and I've been bonking a lot of monsters since then.
Poor real Andreas. He's just getting bonked wherever he is. Yeah, I think it's funny to argue about something where I was like, when I Googled it, was like, what's the lore of Elden Ring? And the post is like, this is the definitive lore of Elden Ring. And there's like 4 assumptions and guesses. And I'm like, yeah, that's not what I was looking for, guys. Like, it's nice to have the trajectory. It's interesting a little bit to see about the tree and the, what is it? The power. But just the main, the divinity. Is it the grace? Yeah.
Okay, so the Elden Ring is the thing, but then the graces are kind of sort of part of it, and it's very weirdly metaphysical, and it's very, very, very complicated.
Yeah.
Including the fact that it is an assumption that time is linear, essentially. And it is an assumption of characters having specific identities. So... like when you get to that level of you can't be certain of things, like you really, really can't be certain of things.
Right. Sure. When you're saying characters, you mean some of the bosses / legendary characters, whatever you want to call them.
Well, the
right. Stuff like that. Yeah. So she's certain that's not the case, though. Which is a bold statement.
More complicated of like depending on what somebody is meaning by demigod, it's like there could be something I can understand, but there's too many things that Andreas cannot explain, so that's just a fruitless type of conversation.
Yep. So anyway, it sounds like the one hook for me, which would have been the world building, would also be an exercise in frustration, in which case, I haven't found the hook that would get me in there unless I'm just like, you know what? It's been a while since I've been abused or abused myself. I should go play this game. So
yeah, the stuff is very weird. And Elden Ring is probably the easiest of the Soulsborne games in the fact that they give you more graces, that you have more places to stop and to rest. Mm-hmm. At the very least, just because of that.
A lot of them compared to even this is a Souls-like, not a Soulsborne. The difference for Justin, if he doesn't know, is alike is it's made like those games, but it's not from that company. Right. But there was a lot less save points in that than than in this game. There are save points everywhere most of the time, or shortcuts to these save points. There's a lot. That's also because the world is so expansive. You kind of have to.
Sure. And the fact that all the monsters reset every time you respawn, which kind of like, I feel like half defeats the purpose. So
Part of it is you learn of like what the moves are that you need to do, and depending on your build, like you can learn from things, you can grind them things. There's the double-edged sword. Like if you grind to higher levels, you can make the bosses even harder for yourself. But you can have people help you with those bosses. But when you have people help you and they invade your world to do that, the bosses get even harder, like higher needing to hit type things. It's just so it's a double-edged sword. But if you are like learning how to move, which is the biggest thing I think in those games, is you will eventually get better. You can also like use tools. You can use like essentially the apothecary types of perfume bombs. They call them perfumers, but they are essentially like gases that you can throw at things. You can put effects on your swords and whatnot. You can be a gigantic crystal wizard.
Yeah,
there's a lot of wizardry.
The spellcasting builds seem very strong. I'm just a big bonk kind of guy.
I would recommend the first time anyone goes into the game of like do something that's much more melee, because it's easier to miss out on things that are magic based. Like if you make a slightly different decision in a quest, you like lose access to certain spells, and if you don't know what you're doing, it can be much like more frustrating. And so if you just kind of stick to more like a melee type build, you don't have to worry about it as much until you know later, and so make that like your second playthrough.
Yeah, that's usually what I do anyway. It's like I go into the melee because it's like I can just smash my face into something, and then, it's like, oh, cool. Now I can play the wizard,
Yeah.
So the way it worked for me in Dungeons and Dragons Online, though, actually, is I think I played my cleric second, and that was actually penance for having been such a shitty fighter. So that was how I always did it. So I was an amazing cleric, but yeah, it was always funny because it's like, yeah, so many people had to carry my fighter. I felt like I owed it to the server to play a healer. So, but
yeah, my build so far is 2 big mazes with spikes on it, and items that makes when you jump and hit harder. That's me. So I just jump and bonk, jump and bonk. It works pretty well.
That is pretty Norwegian of you. So,
yep. Very Norwegian. That's me. I'm from Norway. That was funny if you were from the north, what I just did there.
Oh, hilarious. Yeah.
We'll take your word for it.
You don't see the
Norwegians speak in like a very... I kind of always sound happy, and everything kind of sounds like a question. That's...
It really sounds like you're making fun of Swedes.
No, they don't sound like that. That's definitely more Norwegian.
Totally different.
What have you guys been up to?
Yeah, I mean, just that work. I could talk about work plenty, but that's not that kind of podcast. So,
I saw Elden Ring, not Elden Ring, Star Wars. Its third episode 3 is like getting a 20th anniversary movie theater thingy.
That's cool for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've seen it. I mean, yeah, for the 4th, I watched Return of the Jedi. Because I like big space battles and the climax and everything. And Andor season 2 just wrapped up, so yeah, I've been on a pretty good Star Wars kick the last couple of weeks too. But
I saw someone say, or some article or suggestion I didn't read, that Andor season 2 and Rogue One kind of makes, is it Return of the Jedi, into a joke? One of them makes one of the original 3 movies into like a joke, but I don't know what the context was.
You didn't get deeper than that?
No, I was going to ask you if you had any idea what that might mean. Like why they would say that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I did see something along the lines of like, we had all these heroes, line everything up for Luke, and all Luke had to do was, take an impossible shot. They trivialized what Luke did. They were like, he just had to shoot one torpedo. It's like literally a dozen starfighters died on their way there, plus the fact that Luke had to use the Force to do it. But it was just one torpedo.
I mean, it
So
was an impossible shot. It was only because he's a Force user, right? That's the only reason that he could do it.
presumably it was otherwise possible, but yes, like the implication is that, like the whole scene leading up to it in the trench run, right? He's going to use R2 as the targeting computer. Obi-Wan tells him to use the Force. R2 gets blasted. So, in that moment, it is only possible because he's a Force user. Presumably maybe the Y-Wings could have hit it if they had been able to make it, but Vader made sure that didn't happen, so I don't know. We could go around and around. Like, I really liked Andor. I think it's some of the best Star Wars TV by far, that they've done. It's not perfect. They asked a whole bunch more questions that I think, people are going to be trying to answer for the next like decade, presumably, because they left several large loose ends, with the show, which I think is fine, but it's also a little frustrating when it's like these characters are more or less going to, like, 20 minutes they're going to lead right into Rogue One, and then that's going to go right into A New Hope and everything like that. And so you're like, these guys should be way more important than they clearly are in the Star Wars universe, that sort of thing. But yeah, it was really good overall, and people got way too excited about music at the end of the credits, I feel like, because I'd read a bunch of articles about the Easter egg at the end of the credits, so we're all like, where's the post-credit scene, what's going on here? And then it's like, no, skip to this part and then listen, and it's like, the rebel theme, the triumphant rebel theme, and I'm like, oh, okay, guys, like, you could just skip to Rogue One and they do the same thing, so but yeah.
There are some of the actors from Rogue One that are like in Endor, right? Other than the main guy. Like the bad guy is
so anyway, Cassian comes back, so he's in Andor. They bring Alan Tudyk back for K2. They've got Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera. They actually, they have quite a few of the people. It was fun because like the last couple episodes, you've got Melshi, who is sort of like a secondary or tertiary character at the end of Rogue One, but he's kind of like Cassian's main dude for a couple of episodes. And so my wife was like, wait a minute, we know him, don't we? And it's like, yeah, dude, he leads the ground assault on Scarif, so they gave him some extra face time, which was fun to see. So yeah, they did a really good job with the casting, and that was outside of having, Skarsgård be a great face. And even some of the people that you hadn't seen before, they were just amazing casting decisions, in my opinion.
The bad guy from Rogue One, the Imperial officer in the white uniform, he's in there too, right? Yeah, that actor is just, I just love him and everything he's in. He always kind of just steals the scene.
He does a really good job in this. I feel like they did an excellent job of showing him as a high level Imperial officer, and also being burdened with the incompetence of everybody around him in a way, but at the same time, kind of him being incompetent too, because it's like, that's kind of almost what the story of the Death Star becomes, is like the Empire, goes big and they do all of this stuff, but like then they get infested by rebels, or their own people turn and all of this stuff, and they just think they could not possibly be stopped, and then kind of time and time again they get shut down, and there's a lot of that in Andor, especially towards the end, where the Empire's got the firm fist and they're gonna win, except that they don't, because they overlook the human element, or something along those lines. But yeah, I liked it. It was good. So, but one thing I didn't like was all the time skips, because like almost every episode I feel like skips 1 to 3 years, something like that.
Oh, so that's a lot of time skip.
Yeah, it's a lot. There's like 12, I think.
Oh,
And
that's
some
a
of
really
them,
big span of time.
yeah, some of them are like 3 to 4 episode like mini arcs, sometimes. But yeah, there are a lot of things where it's like, so anyway, that was a year ago, and it's like, we didn't really resolve that entirely. We didn't deal with the fallout. We didn't, anything. And it's like, there's a whole lot more story we could have told. They
Then what about
kind of,
season 1? Is that also that big a time skips, or is that more
no,
condensed? Okay.
yeah. So I don't recall, like, it's been a couple of years since I've seen it, so I don't recall there being many, if any, time skips. There might have been like one or two, but definitely it kind of serves itself in season 2 as like a ticking clock, so where you're like, because what they're doing is they're referencing it before Battle of Yavin, so it's like, this is 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, this is 4 years before the Battle of Yavin, and so it's a tick down like that. But at the same time, for a show that was supposed to give us more of Cassian's backstory, part of it, from what I understand from interviews, is that they had originally come up with a 5-season plan, and
I was
then
about to
very
ask,
much,
were they gonna do more season and then decided not to?
yeah, and then they realized the actor is going to age way too fast at the rate that they're going, so they should have just done it animated, basically, and then they wouldn't have
It
this
does solve
problem.
some problems
So,
there.
A little
yeah.
nod to the Dresden Files podcast that we do every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, where Alex argues that the Dresden Files should be animated, even though we already agreed on live action.
Okay, so he's replaced Andreas at least a few months ago then. So yeah.
I mean, anime does solve some problems for you there. You don't
It
have to
solves
worry
some
about
problems,
time.
but yeah.
It also adds some
I mean-
problems, like massive loss on mainstream appeal.
Yeah, let's get controversial for a moment, because I'll clarify. I find it fascinating and horrifying, and I'm not necessarily espousing it. But have you guys seen the stuff coming out for Google VO, or however it's
I have.
pronounced?
It is
That if that
getting
shit's
really good.
legit, we're cooked, man. Like, to say what the kids say, because the article that I saw, I was like, this has got to be so fake that I don't even know what this website is, and it actually turns out to be like decently credentialed, supposedly, for what it is. But it's like, they've got AI basically making live action videos right now. Like, you cannot tell the difference.
I would say
In my
the live
opinion,
action, it was a little dependent, and I could tell on some of the examples I saw.
Sure.
But the animated example they show, there's no uncanny valley, and the voices and the animation is synced up so well. It's like the animation's like, that was really good.
Yeah, it's the article that I saw was like 10 live action instances, and like the only things, like, there were a couple of times where they would tell you up front, like, hey, this was the prompt we fed it, and you could kind of tell, like, you're almost not quite getting realistic answers, you're getting like some adjacency there. There was one for like a car show, but at the same time I was like, man, if you're not paying attention, if you're not looking for it, I think this would fly over most people, and
my
it's just
roommate said,
insane.
especially there was an example of a stand-up guy doing some
Yeah.
stand-up, and my
I
roommate
didn't
was like,
watch that one, but
I
yeah,
can't tell. Like, he's like, we're cooked. I can't tell if this is AI.
right. Yeah, so other than the fact that it's straight up horrifying and straight up out of 1984, and good luck to the rest of the world and information at this point, what I was going to say is, tying it in, like, that's how you can get away with your animated versus real type of thing, is like, AI could just do it for you now. Like, I still kind of go back to a thought I had when they started doing the digital acting for, like, Peter Cushing and Princess Leia and everything like that. But it's like, you're just going to sign it, from now on. Like, being an actor may wind up just being like, okay, you're going to record a few hours of video for us, and do these things. Because they do it sometimes with like voice actors too. They'll put their, syllables in a bank so that they can use their voice later.
Words, so we have then we can make it.
Yeah, then we can basically make you say whatever you want at that point, right? So it's like, people who sign up to do that, they're going to take your face, they're going to scan you, they're going to do all of this stuff, and then we're going to have Tom Cruise being his young sexy self for decades until people are just like tired of it. Not because he got old, but just because we've seen him in every damn thing, So it's crazy. So
I just saw a movie last week called G20, where the president goes to the G20 summit and terrorist takes over, and she's a former soldier, and
Sure.
action movie, die-hardy stuff. But the plot point is actually that they want these world leaders. They put them in front of a green screen and say these specific words, this sentence, and then they generate that they said all kinds of stuff they didn't. At the summit.
Yeah. There you go. Just watch more movies, which ironically are also now AI generated, so they can tell you the dangers of AI. If only we had movies about this since like the 80s, though. Terminator 2. Sorry, just.
Terminator didn't have fake movies. It just went straight to killing.
Right, I know, but that's coming too. So,
I mean, I'm just happy that in all my prompts with AI, I've been very polite.
Right. Yeah. Yep. To merge with a certain comedian's shtick, the T600s are going to come walking down the street and then they're going to stop at my house and be like, "Hey, thanks for always saying thank you," and then just keep walking. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So,
but if they come to your house and they're like, "How is it pronounced? GIF or GIF?"
How would you like it to be pronounced? Yeah. I mean, if it's Terminators, then you be polite. But if it's people, I have some contingencies. So, but
I mean, when are you getting yourself an EMP you're gonna install just in case?
That's a good idea, actually. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sitting over here deluding myself that all this work I'm doing with the sledgehammer is going to pay off. So, but.
What are you doing with a sledgehammer? I didn't get the reference.
Yeah, it's just one of the things that I use as kind of a workout. I use it kind of as a free weight and stuff like that. So
also a good way to get frustration out.
Presumably, but yeah, I just swing it around my office sometimes when I'm on a meeting instead of like go out and work the tire like I should. But so I use it kind of like doing curls and tricep exercises and stuff like that. So, but swing it, get used to the heft and everything. So I don't like helicoptered around my office for obvious reasons. So I've got a lot of fun things in here that don't need to be sledgehammered. So, but
it's like, whoops. Well, I'm going to Best Buy. I need a new monitor.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the shit is, irreplaceable or international or, sentimental just in general, but some of it's functional.
Same as irreplaceable, isn't it? Like, because even if you got a new version of it, does it have that sentimental value?
You just lie. You'd be like, yeah, it's a perfect clone. It's fine. Yeah. Just
exact
take all that sentimentality
made in the replicator, actually.
Yeah. Right.
Still funny when I think about it. Replicators in Star Trek, super cool thing. Replicators in Stargate, very terrifying thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yep, more EMPs. So well, that's it. We ran out of it. We finally have talked about everything. Good job, guys. All washed up. Some of us in our 30s. Most of us in our 30s, I think.
All of us are in our 30s.
See?
I don't like
I'm wearing silver, though, so we're good.
I'm closer to 40 than 30.
Oh, yeah, I'm a lot closer. So
I just
not worry about that.
Passed it this time. So
yeah.
That's birthday. Oh, boy. I'm still in my head. I'm still like 21.
Yeah, me too. The body doesn't agree, but I'm very much still a child sometimes. So
yeah, pretty much every time I move, some joint pops, makes sounds, very musical.
Well, you better give that dog a bone. I'm just saying.
And when I get up, it's like 4 or 5 different joints doing a crack sound or something. Like knees, then the back, and yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I don't feel like that so much, but I have the old man standing up sounds because my kids have started to make fun of that. They're like, "Why do you make sound when you stand up?" And I'm like, "You'll understand later." You know,
But when you pick
some of it
things
is
up,
just some of it's just affectation because it's like you've seen so many other people do it. It's not like it's actually an effort or whatever. It's just part of the process now. But um, the ones that get me are like I very much have a momentum, for lack of a better word. I very much have like a steady state of energy, and if I start to exceed that in one way or another, then because it's like I feel fine. I feel like I could go run right now for about 30 seconds, because that will be out of my energy envelope, so. But like if I'm here, I could do this all day, because this is my normal. But yeah,
This is what you've practiced. This is what you've built the capacity for.
right, yeah. And it is a horrifyingly small capacity compared to other parts of my life. So yeah, that's why it's like more running, more walking, that sort of thing. Probably actually going to go on a hike on Monday for the holiday. So
Nice.
and my buddy's like, you been on a lot of hikes lately? No, dude. So don't judge me if I'm like, yeah, I have been on hikes before and I know how it goes. But if, we get winded and decide we can't go on, then you can't carry me out of here and I don't want to carry you. So, we're going to just go back to the
just
car.
like, how far are we? Oh, about a third of the way. Right.
Well, we're adults with experience, so we pregame that one a little bit on our lunch date, and so it was like, I was like, yeah, you want to hit the waterfall? He's like, the waterfall is actually quite quite a distance, right? It was like, okay, what does that look like? Well, the waterfall's only about halfway of what I want to do, and it's probably still about like 3 hours of like incline, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it, man. So like, if we take breaks and stuff, if it takes us a little while, if we decide to turn back, just don't judge me.
If it
too
takes
much,
you 8
'cause,
hours to do it, but you've still done it.
Yeah, we probably won't do that because we're approaching proper Utah summer. But so
What does that mean?
well,
Hot.
yeah,
Dry.
it's consistently 80 plus right now, and hiking an 80 plus with no cover sucks. So
wear sunscreen. Have good shoes.
Right. Yeah, and we're leaving pretty stupid early, so we should miss most of the heat. But that's going to be the upper limit, is like when it starts to spike and
26.
we're running out of water and shit, then that's time to head home. So, and be like, dang, we can still see the parking lot from here, then that'll be embarrassing. So, but it's just life. That's how it works. So still better than sitting on the couch all day.
Approach to the whole endeavor.
Right. That's old age and wisdom. Like, buddy, this is not the first time that I failed. It's not even the 53rd time I failed or the 500th time that I failed, but you get better by doing. And so instead of worrying about like, oh man, we're not even going to be able to make it the whole way, you say, let's see how far we can get, so maybe you'll surprise yourself with a waterfall.
Oh, in the waterfall. That's nice. The waterfall at the end of the rainbow.
Yep. I'm sorry to disappoint TLC after all these years, but I do chase waterfalls. So, and I don't stick to the rivers and the lakes.
I mean, it's a banger song. It is. It's good. It's catchy as hell.
Did it take
don't
you
even
a
know
minute?
if I've ever heard this song.
You've
I've
never heard "Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls"?
So. I've only heard people making fun of it.
Okay, you've got Spotify, presumably because we're in the 21st century and you're an American. Like, go listen to their top hits, because No Scrubs, Chasing Waterfalls, like, right?
Yeah, that's just so catchy. Like,
if you're into Weezer does a fantastic cover, and they don't even change the lyrics, so it's even funnier when it's like he's singing about dudes trying to pick him up. Like, it's you really, yeah. Let's see. You were barely born when these songs came out, probably. So that's why you missed the boat. I was in like 3rd grade and all the kids were playing it, but they're still like, they were the jam for a while. So
sure.
Yeah.
I just like I've only ever come across it as other people making fun of the lyrics instead of anything actually playing it for real.
I wasn't making fun. I was referencing.
Oh, whichever. Why is he having a mental breakdown now?
I know, right?
It's like, what the
That was
most mildest of statements?
That was unrelated to the conversation.
But did you die in Elden Ring that you've still been playing while you've been podcasting?
Yeah, I feel like I've been talking a lot still. I feel like I'm pulling.
You've been
my weight
quite
and-
engaged.
Yeah, and yes, I got those stone statues that can cause bleed that are like in all the dungeons. Yeah,
Be
I
careful.
was down in the sewers and suddenly on a platform I got jumped by like 7 of them or something out of nowhere. Yeah, so that was 50k runes down the drain.
Yikes.
That's about a level at where I'm at.
Sure. That's so many skill points.
Yes. It starts taking a while leveling up at some point.
Sure.
Where I think I'm kind of getting there. What level am I? 94.
It's up there.
The meta usually tops out at around 130. Because then you can still, like, if you're outside of the level range of other people, they can't invade you, you can't invade them. And if you wanted to do PvP, you get like limited based on comparative levels. Like there's a give and take, but I don't remember by how much. And so I think it's usually sticks around 130.
Yeah, I've not really participated much in the PvP. All of them, other people have invaded me. And then it's been kind of 50-50 if I win or lose. Which I'm surprised by, because I assumed the people invading would have like a PvP build, and I just have a whatever it is I'm doing build.
I think it's just the interaction, the weirdnesses that can happen when you have another person to actually go up against instead of just a NPC. The appeal of PvP is not the same thing of I'm going to beat you. It's just what's going to happen, as far as I can tell.
Well, that's not why I would do it. So
PvP for me has always been, the appeal has been I'm going to beat someone else. That's the fun part is.
And for full transparency, the reason why I don't PvP usually is because those people are going to beat me, even if I go and I'm like, I'm going to get you. And then like, nah, buddy. So, yeah.
To relate to something Justin's actually played, like some of the best PvP I've played in a shooting game, like the experience I had the most fun with was actually Destiny 2's PvP. Like
It's supposed to be really good.
Sliding and shooting people with my Battle Devils, headshots, 2 shots, then they're dead. It was fun. It was satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a twitchy gamer. Never have been. And so the best PvP meta I ever had was Gnawing Hunger and Bastion. And my favorite thing, like I think a big part of what came out of it is like if you're charging at somebody in PvP and they didn't turn and run, they probably know something that you don't know. And that became a self lesson for me a bunch of times because there were plenty of times where I thought I had the upper hand and I pursued when I shouldn't have. But my favorite was when people would pop a solo super, a roaming super, and Bastion could cut through their armor and kill them in 1 or 2 bursts anyway. It's like, buddies, like, come on. So, like, I didn't run. You should have known better.
Which game is this? Is this Bastion that kind of indie game?
No, it's Destiny 2. Bastion was the name of a... It's a kinetic... It was a kinetic fusion rifle, and it had 3 bursts. And they ended up nerfing the hell out of it because it had enough armor pen that it could cut through any of the roaming supers, basically. So like, it didn't make it terrible and unusable, but it kind of got rid of the main use case for it. But I used it enough where it's like I had all the timings down and everything like that. And I'm a dirty auto rifle user. So it's like if you were being stupid and had your head out at 50 yards, I could still, put you down. So, but yeah. I was okay at hand cannons, mostly because I actually had to go do Luna's Howl. I did that one legit, so.
I just found hand cannons to be very satisfying to use.
Sure.
I don't know how good I actually was with them, but I found them very satisfying.
If you were even semi-decent, you were probably above average because, most of Destiny's PvP crowd were just average. They just kind of sucked, So
Yeah,
I
I
was
used them
slightly below
also
average,
PvE
which
and
sucked.
PvP. I just use better devils. I just love that gun.
Right. Yeah. You were one of them's. Hunter, better devils. We're in a raid, bro. Could you please put on a shotgun or something? So, yep.
Yep. I didn't do raids
I've
that
made
many
fun of
times.
many
But
of your
yeah.
yeah, made fun of many of your peers, and then you had the guys that I was really good friends with that would show up with shoot, what are they called? I can't even remember. It's been that long, but they're like the hand cannons, but they had burst fire. I can't remember what they are anymore. So it's been too long.
Yeah. What kind of hunter do you think it
Sidearms.
was?
Sidearms. So what kind of hunter were you?
Yeah, there was like three. I think it's when I played. I think there was three different like sub
What?
specs of the hunter.
Classes?
Yeah, classes, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume shadow. So, like, especially if you're in PvP, that was pretty meta. So,
I mean, Shadow was really cool, but I actually mostly played the one where the ultimate was also a handgun.
all right, okay, so golden gun, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. No, that was fun. I would enjoy doing that because it wasn't entirely off meta, but you had a bunch of gimmicky shit that would get people to, like being able to do the trap grenades and stuff. And I would watch some streamers play Trials of Osiris and see if I could learn anything by osmosis. And some of their builds, at times would be just really lean into, the trap mines and the exploding knife and everything like that. So, yeah, I was a warlock main in a PvP game where warlocks had no PvP skills really. So like they had a couple of classes that if you were really good could be exceptionally meta, but then they also worked real hard to nerf those. So I was always a void lock if I could help it, especially in PvP or solar, but I wasn't like the PvP solar was the problem. It took a lot of time to try and work in the dodges and stuff like that, but chasing people down with the warp when they actually unnerfed the speed so that you could catch people that were doing, that were just walking. Like they had nerfed the speed so bad that you could walk away from one of the roaming supers. But when they fixed that, that was my time to shine, using the charged grenade to take people out. Another one where it's like, if I'm around the corner and you think you're going to rush me, don't, because I've charged my grenade. So, but yeah. It was a lot of fun. I don't know what it's like right now. I just see all the bad news, because that's what sells, right? So, they just had yet another, another piece of drama come out, all about Marathon mostly, but it's like game's not even out yet and they're already like not sure it's going to come out and all this other stuff. Stole somebody's art, good times.
Yeah, I saw the art thing. In general, I've just seen people be very negative about Bungie and Destiny 2 for the last year at least, or 2 years even.
It's been always, dude. Like the reason why I didn't get into Destiny 1 is because everybody was shitting on the game so hard. And like it was generally pretty good, but I played it too much and like I feel like I escaped before some of the really bad shit happened. So
I saw a lot of positivity around Destiny when they like tore loose from Microsoft's gaming division and wanted to do their own publishing and everything, and people were like really excited about that. But then it went way worse than how it was under Microsoft.
Sure, I feel like that's almost been the MO, right? Like they always hype up like whatever move they're going to make, and then it's worse. Except for they went to Sony, and Sony wants it to work so hard, I feel like, and this time it's Bungie screwing it up. Maybe it was always Bungie screwing it up, I don't know, but I feel like from what I'm inferring from some of the articles, it's like, I mean, if you've gotten rid of like so much staff over time and you're still screwing it up, it's got to be somebody on top. Right? Like you got to have somebody calling shots that, that are still screwing it up somewhere. Like, so
Did you see the speaking of someone on top, the guy who runs the game studio that does Borderlands? Did you see him?
the $80 thing.
Yeah, the $80
If you're a true fan,
yeah,
you'll buy our game instead of pay rent that month or eat or literally anything else you could do with $80. So
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
the longer takes where he's like, when I was a kid and I had to pay $80 for a game, I made it work. Like if I really wanted to play that game, sure. But it just kind of
but you
comes
don't
off as
say
tone
it.
deaf. Yeah, it comes
Yeah,
off as
exactly.
tone deaf, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because like, anytime you see stuff like that, I love to see what Larian is doing or what they're saying about it, because they did Baldur's Gate and they repeatedly demonstrated the fact that they're a class act when it comes to game development. And they're like, we're also people, and we understand that prices might go up, and Baldur's Gate could have been an $80 game that would have been fantastic, but we're never going to say, if you're a true fan, go buy it. It's just the economics, right? Like, prices do go up, inflation's a thing, the trade embargo is a thing. Like, yes, $80 games are probably going to become more and more common, but you don't tell people, like, you could not eat that day and still buy the game. So
There's a difference in the statement of we're putting it at that price because it's worth it or because of economic needs or whatever, versus like buy it or you're a piece of shit.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's just manipulative, right? And you see that a lot for a bunch of different stuff where it's just like such a low hanging, stupid argument where it's like, well, a true fan, blah, blah, blah. I was like, what does that even mean? Like, I
It's a
think
dangerous game to play too, because a true fan of something that, like, because they're trying to say, like, yeah, obviously it's good, except you have to prove that it's good still, because everyone is now cynical of the enchitification of everything. Like, you have to prove that $80 is actually worth it. There's a lot of people who are just going to wait.
Right.
And rightfully
We're
so.
such a weird landscape with video games right now, where so many games, like you say, the enshittification of games, and they're just getting worse. But at the same time, we're also, because like technology has gotten so much better, and with some of the people who really gives a shit, like you actually get some of the best games we've ever seen.
Indie games are getting really good and interesting, and well, they're cheaper, but they aren't trying to do too much. They're able to keep their focus much more small, and so they're able to make something that is maybe less appeal, it's more niche, but they're able to do something good.
Yeah, maybe like Elden Ring is hailed as one of the best games ever made, right? A lot of people say that, and they're, I don't know, From Software, they're kind of like somewhere in between a AAA and a AA, I would say. Like they're kind of smaller game studio wise, game companies wise, but they're just very good at what they do. Baldur's Gate, I will say the aspirations in Baldur's Gate, it feels like a AAA game, but the games Larian Studios is also on this, like, the more medium, smaller side compared to the actual big, the Blizzards and all that. And they make great stuff. AAA, but smaller size of team, I guess. Like those, they just give a shit about what they're making.
Sure. Yeah.
And
I don't know
they're
what the
really
size
used to
has
the
to
indie
do with.
devs.
Yeah. I don't know what the size has to do with AAA, but
yeah, I don't really
there's
know
not
what the
actually a
distinctions of
definition.
AAA, AA. It does seem
There's
very
not really a
arbitrary.
definition. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I mean, sizes of
something
companies
like
have to do with
the
costs and
resources
how much
put
cost they need
into
to
it. I don't
get
know.
back. But I don't know.
Sure.
I think a smaller team is probably going to be able to do something like more focused to completion better. The larger the team is, the harder it is going to be to stay focused, because there's just going to be creep or growth or just people not on the same page. All of those things are problems. But
I read an article with a bunch of quotes about game devs about like why game development is so hard and why people don't understand it. And one of the quotes was like, sometimes you're on a direction and then some asshole comes in and be like, look at the new game that I just played. And
why
then
are we not
everybody gets
Fortnite?
excited and yeah, like wants to change and do that, So I got to imagine that happens often, one of the quotes was about like, it used to be like if games had a really long development cycle, you're like, oh man, it's going to be so few bugs and it's going to be so refined. But anymore, people are
Good
like,
God,
yeah,
no.
if it's a quick turnaround, they probably actually knew what the fuck they were doing, which you just look at Bethesda's, development times, right? Like you'd think that their process and their experience and their history would matter, but it takes them like a decade to put out a game, and Todd Howard, I think, has said that it took him like 7 years before Starfield felt fun,
Yeah, that's a bad thing.
right, exactly. So,
I
it just,
own the game because I got it with my graphics card, and I still haven't played it.
I think it's worth the play. Yeah. I played it. I even went through quite a few of the new game pluses to level up the powers, but at that point it was just like, yes, it's actually one of the main kind of things, and it's story driven, right? But like the thing is, if you just want to do the grinding, you can do a new game plus in like an hour and a half. Like that, I think that's what I was doing. Like it was pretty much like an afternoon. If I was playing, I would just go do 1 or 2 runs of a new game plus, and there are like some random variances that you can run into, and that was part of it. It was like I wanted to see that, but after I approached the max benefit is something like 10, and I went and was like, okay, people with like more time than me or get revenue from streaming have done this. So I was like, what are even the odds that I run into some of these variances? And they're pretty low compared to, are you going to run into them in 10 runs, and so it's just like, it's not one of the best games ever, right? It's disappointing in a few different ways and stuff like that. I think it's supposed to be better, but I haven't been back since some of the major patches that they did in the last couple of years, like year or two. But I think it's worth, playing through if you like Bethesda games, right? It's a Bethesda game. But it's kind of where it's like, I don't want to keep calling what they do a role-playing game. Like the story is almost incidental to what you're doing, and we know that. We've talked about that on the show a bunch of times. It's a sandbox game, right? They want you to just show up to a world that is randomly generated in this case, and go make your own story, and that's different, by a lot. So
I haven't played Starfield. I have no interest in it, but what I've heard of it is you go to a randomly generated world with all of the bases look the same. They used all the same
right.
cookie cutter assets, and so like there's nothing even left to explore. And
yeah, there's like 20 variances, or I don't know. I might be underselling it by a lot, but it's not a lot when you go to like 40 different worlds, and like half of them are pretty close to the same.
Yeah, and what I have heard is that the idea of being in the spaceship worked well, and that might be the only thing that worked very well. I don't know. But another rumor of as they're working on the new Elder Scrolls is they might be wanting it to be on a coast, and you get a ship. And so, I mean, in most developers' hands, it would be like, okay, it's a ship, but Bethesda has many, many other problems of like what I have heard of Starfield is like everything is a fucking loading screen because the way that they're beholden to their engine, the engine demands loading screens in ways that interrupts gameplay. And so if it's just get on the ship and load, move around in the ship and load, and then Oblivion had this problem too, but it wasn't quite as egregious of just, but you go to the first floor of a building and you had to have a loading screen. Go to the second floor of the same building, you had to have a loading screen.
Right.
The engine is seriously holding them back, but they will never move away from it. And people would put up with bad gameplay for better stories, and they've also been falling flat on that.
Sure. Yeah. I don't remember how bad it was with Skyrim. With Fallout, like maybe you have loading screens going into a building or catching an elevator in some cases, but you could explore buildings without loading screens. You could walk around downtown Boston without loading screens and stuff like that. So I don't think that particularly was egregious. With Skyrim, they probably, or sorry, I said Skyrim again. With Starfield, they probably hit it largely with the landing sequence, right? But that was also kind of a complaint, especially early on, which is like, I've got a spaceship. Why can I not just hop it 200 meters over there and be closer to the thing that I want to go to? So it's kind of funny because like they still want to like maintain carrying weight, and there were some limited ways that you could kind of get around that. Like if you were within like 50 or 150 meters of your ship, you were pretty much there and could just offload shit anyway. But it's like, I got a wrist computer. Why can I not make my ship come to me? Or whatever. Like there's a dozen things that I was like, why do you want to lean into this gameplay mechanic so much? But it's like at the same time, those things because it's a Bethesda game and you've probably played one before. So those mechanics are all the same, but that's also almost a negative for the game because we're in a different universe now. Like,
yeah,
you shouldn't have those same restrictions, So there were a lot of things where it was like,
I mean, having in playing an Elder Scrolls game when you don't have a ship and you have to carry everything, having a weight as a restriction, it makes sense. Like you have to pick and choose what you have or what you can carry, or you're going to walk really, really, really slowly. It's like, oh, okay, but like, yeah, you have a ship. Is weight really a problem here?
Right.
You have the ability to break gravity. Do you have anti-gravity abilities?
Right. Yeah, why do you not just have like a cart, that you can bring with you or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they've had this technology for hundreds of years in today's age, let alone let's go 200 years in the future. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, there were ways to cheese around it, for lack of a better word. Like you could make it pretty trivial in Starfield, but at the same time, like once you progressed far enough, it didn't matter, depending on what you did with your playthrough and stuff. But yeah, at least, going through the story once, if you didn't pay for the game, it'll be just fine. But I think when my brother and I were playing through it, especially the first time, if you love it, whatever, they've patched it since then, etc. But when we were playing through, I was like, man, I'm really glad I didn't pay for this. So like we got it through Game Pass, and so we were playing it side by side, and it's like it's not the most amazing game ever, but if you're looking for something to do and you like Bethesda games, you're gonna get what you expect out of it, right? Skyrim, I feel like, is better. Fallout 4 was loads better in my opinion, stuff like that. So
the remastered Oblivion yet?
Not yet.
I haven't gotten around to it, but
yeah, it's kind of in my backlog. It's probably going to be like, I'm getting more hype out of like, Doom Middle Ages, even though I'm not interested in, being a medieval knight like style of play at all. I've heard that it works really well, so I'm going to give it a try because I enjoy the Doom games, but yeah, that'll probably be my next one currently, but we'll see.
Yeah, I sent a new game that came out. I think you might be interested in the private chat for the listeners. It's Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon, which is like a more like indie game, but very much in an Elder Scrolls kind of vein, fantasy RPG.
So you lost me already. So good job.
I lost you.
I'm not. Well, okay. You said Elder Scrolls. I was hearing Elden Ring again, but it's like I'm not interested in a Souls-like game. I don't like roguelike games. It's like, yeah. So that's what I was thinking when I said that. So,
anyone else got anything interesting to say before we shut off? Go off.
Oh, we're gonna go off, all right.
Hell yeah. Well, this has been an episode of we weren't recording. We are live every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern for While We Weren't Recording or Dresden Files. You can support us on patreon.com/brokenjars. And if you do, you get access to our Discord. You can leave a like, a subscribe, a comment on YouTube. Those things help out. Yeah. Until next time.